Okay, one second. Let me just pull up the IMDb because this is an interesting one. And when I got to the IMDb and I realized who was playing Dr. White, I suddenly realized that I think that Kimmy Schmidt might be trying to reference this episode. I don't know. If anyone who's watched, we'll get to that. Okay. Let's do our intros. Okay, ready?
Yes.
Mr. McGee, don't make me angry. You wouldn't like me when I'm angry.
You are about to listen to the Totally Super Awesome 80s Reboot Overdrive podcast.
This podcast is our fan tribute to the Incredible Hulk TV show. Be advised it has been exposed to radiation and we caution to listen at your own risk. You have now entered GammaCast.
Hello and welcome once again to GammaCast. Tonight's episode is Kindred Spirits. First aired April 6th, 1979. David Barton, that's where he's Barton. David Barton joins an expedition that has found evidence of a prehistoric Hulk and is recognized by a young doctor who is inspired by him. Together they try to find out if the earlier Hulk might have found a cure. Bum bum bum. Director Joseph Pevney, written by Kenneth Johnson, Karen Harris, hey, female writers again, and Jill Sherman, okay, also known as Jill Donner. So 2 female writers. Maybe that's why we had such a strong female lead. Okay, this is a pretty cool episode. We start off with Dr. Gabrielle White and Dr. What's his name? Where is he?
Professor Williams.
Professor Williams, yeah. There he is. Professor Williams, played by Whit Bissell, giving their presentation on this evidence they may have found of the existence of a proto-Hulk. And they do a great bit of... they gave Lou Ferrigno a longer wig to wear and a loincloth.
I know, that was funny.
Hey, you know what? The guy's on salary. They might as well use him. Mm-hmm. And he gets to play different characters. It's fun. And of course, David wants to get in on this expedition. And for the first time ever, he finds an employer who isn't too keen on just hiring some moody drifter that just wandered into their office. But as luck would have it, Dr. Gabrielle White, who's in charge of the expedition, decides to give this moody drifter a shot. Why would she do something? Is it just David's amazing smoldering sexiness? No, we find out on the Jeep ride up that she recognized him as Dr. David Banner because Dr. David Banner had apparently given a lecture on comparative physiology between humans and apes, and that got her into archaeology. I do wonder that, when they gave that tidbit of information, I had to wonder if that was something that related to his experiments on strength, or if that was just, he was, doing some grad school work. I don't know which. It would fit nicely into his experiments on strength. We know that from the gorilla episode, I want to say the Beast Within. Yes, the Beast Within, that apparently his research into anger and aggression did have some play in observation of apes. It was a very interesting. It was a very interesting throwaway. I really liked it. As with all things, I wish there's more backstory. They're doing their research. They get stopped as they're leaving the dig by some young Native American toughs. who make a very valid statement about, we want to make sure you guys aren't taking stuff from our lands. And I really felt, it's a very interesting thing, especially in our modern context. Right now we have the big protest up in North Dakota regarding the pipeline on Indian lands, or as some people point out, not technically on Indian lands, but like going right up next to them and, near sacred ground. It's one of these things, when you talk about burial grounds, it might not be on the reservation proper, but, what was on the reservation proper is a repeatedly redrawn line that probably doesn't take into account the historical nature of the relationships of the people with the land they were on and where they might have settled at various points in their history. I thought it's a powerful thing. It also is powerful because, of course, in the 1970s, we also, which we'll get to in a minute, but there were, I believe this is shortly after Wounded Knee and various other, the Native American rights movement was really coming into its fold, or its full right in this point in history. And so, it's again one of these episodes where they're going to take something that is very topical, but they are going to put it in a nice Hulk story. And I do think this is a really great Hulk story. The only thing I'll say about it is I was a little disappointed again that Jack McGee wasn't at the original lecture about the Proto-Hulk. Which again goes into this question of, is Jack McGee just not as good of a reporter as we think he is?
Well, he wasn't interested until the real live modern Hulk showed up.
Yeah, but you would think that maybe he might have, like I said, in my mind, I would have loved it had he put two and two together. Someone's talking about this ancient, metamorphosized being. Although I guess maybe they don't know if it's a metamorphosized being yet. They just know that he's that it's a great beast, and so maybe that's why, because they really hadn't keyed into the idea of metamorphosis until David put the pieces together.
Yeah, and do you think, you could easily describe Jack's interest in the Hulk as an obsession, and do you always think logically when you're obsessing about something?
Fair enough. But it is interesting to me exactly where he's, it's, in my mind, I want Jack McGee to be just one of these great gumshoe reporters who really, goes out and pieces it together and gets the story. But, obviously, if he's too good, then the series ends. So, I think if I ever do get around to writing those Jack McGee files, which I always promise I'm going to do, one of the key things is going to be about all of the other things in the Marvel Universe that keep on distracting him, like the Man Thing, which is what I that is so much why he was in Florida in the first Kung Fu episode, because he was there because someone said, yeah, it's a big green creature up in the swamps, don't touch it. So he goes there and he meets he meets Dr. Voodoo, he meets the Man Thing, but it's not the Hulk. So, maybe even, wants to write a story about the Man Thing, but he says, I've got no pictures, I've got nothing on this. It's just all speculation. The Hulk is something I have pictures on. I can sell that story. I can't sell your Man Thing. And for what it's worth, the Man Thing hasn't killed anybody. He's just sitting out in the woods. Yeah, I got the whole story up here. I just got to actually freaking get a word processing program to write it on. Had to look into Google Docs. So mad at Microsoft for taking away the free word processing program that they used to bundle. Because WordPad used to have a spell check, used to be able to do basically what you could do with Word, but on a slightly smaller scale. You can't anymore. Darn you, Microsoft. Anyway. We were telling you a story about this episode. We get our first Hulk out because essentially the young Native American toughs sabotage the dig site. And originally they just wanted to scare them, so they made stuff loose so dust was falling, because I guess dust is scary. I'm not sure. I'm not sure exactly how that was supposed to scare them, because they weren't scared while they were in there, and the dust is all around them.
I guess they were supposed to think, oh no, it's about to come down any minute. We better get out of here.
Yeah, I guess it was supposed to be, but scientists, they're easily they're not the most observant people apparently. But the other guy, of course, decides he wants to make it a little more, a little more clear what their intentions were, and so he knocks some stuff. I believe that's the guy who eventually brings the gun at the end of the episode. So we get the cave in, we get our transformation, everyone is saved. The kid sees the Hulk, who we find out that basically these Native Americans have been telling the stories of the Proto-Hulk for many generations as this godlike being who was, was kind of, I wasn't sure if they were suggesting that he was a protector spirit, which the Hulk often is. So maybe that was the case, and it was a very interesting point that that Lone Wolf, who is a Native American actor, makes on it about how he's green, so that no person could claim that the god was like them, and it's a very pleasant idea. Moving right along, they have found that there was possibly this plant that and they find a fossil of just before the cave-in, but apparently they got the fossil out, so they now know what the plant likely was that may be able to reverse the metamorphosis, which would be great. And I was kind of disappointed they didn't do a tie-in in this point with the racehorse episode. I don't know if you saw that one, Phil. But in the racehorse episode, basically there's a Native American horse trainer who has this special herbal concoction to calm down skittish horses, which they do give to David, which actually does give him a temporary cure. Again, one of these things that David gets cured, but walks away because, oh no, Jack McGee's here. So hopefully maybe we can tie those two stories back together again. And of course, in the Jack McGee files, I would absolutely do that. But they find the plant, and we find out that Dr. Gabriel White isn't Dr. Gabriel White at all. She's actually Dr. Gabriel White Cloud. Bum, bum, bum. She was merely passing as White. And like I said, it's kind of interesting. She's actually played by Kim Cattrall, who many folks will remember from Sex and the City. And was she's a very fine actress. She was in a lot of great movies. She was basically, kind of the Scarlett Johansson of the late 70s, early 80s. Kind of that sexy lady who you got for some various and interesting roles. So kind of weird seeing her in red face. But of course, this was 1979. No one thought about stuff like that, Yeah. But it's kind of amazing when you think about it, how, because really, blackface had been strongly removed from storytelling long before this. But red face and yellow face, that just kept on going pretty much until the next millennium. That, like, right now is when people are saying, yeah, that's probably, no, we don't do that anymore. Although, of course, I guess you get this replayed concept in the Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt. Because, of course, in that, I'm forgetting her name. The actress who she played Jenna on 30 Rock, who is also supposedly a Native American character, and I believe her last name is actually White Cloud as well, and she does by Ms. White. In that, so I do wonder if there was some inspiration there. In my mind, headcanon confirmed that was the inspiration. I'm going to have to write Brian Cronin about TV Legends Revealed to see if there was any connection between Dr. White and Ms. White in the creation of the Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, which of course is a very surrealistic and almost superheroic series itself. There is a meme out there as to whether or not Kimmy Schmidt may in fact have superpowers.
But do you think a lot of the casting came down to people behind the scenes, some of their favorite actors or friends? Because we get a lot of reoccurring, not the same character, but we'll get the same actors. Like that's what I was gonna say. Whit Bissell, who plays Professor Williams, he comes back in season 4 as another character.
Yeah, well, yeah, we've seen that a lot of times.
Yeah.
Kim Cattrall is a name actress, and she was already a name actress at this point. So I think they just, they could get Kim Cattrall. They wanted to roll. No one thought to, and what's interesting is like some of the actual actors that they have here are actual Native American actors. So I'm sure there was some eye scans at the fact that as they're trying to make this point about Native American rights and Native American identity, oh yeah, here's that chick from Sex and the City. Well, at this point, she wasn't in Sex and the City. She was doing a lot of other things, but was a well-known actress at that point. There she is, just pulling her out. She was in the Hardy Boy Nancy Drew mysteries as well. Yeah, but she was a well-known, well-working actress at that point, and they just decided to use her to be this. I don't know if she had played the First Lady yet. It was a movie she did with Chuck Norris. But I don't know if that was after this or before this. Anyway, but she is a cultural treasure, and of course was in Big Trouble in Little China for your 1980s fans out there. Anyway, so what happens is Jack McGee doesn't want to tell a story. Basically, Jack McGee wants a Hulk story. And that's why he's bugging everyone, and the Native Americans are like, well, why don't you tell our story, all the oppression, all this stuff, and he says, hey, that story's been told, kid, too many times. Nobody wants to read it anymore, which is just that ever so powerful white privilege. We be all there. Nobody wants to hear it. It's and by nobody wants to hear it, they mean no white people who are buying the register want to hear it, and and again, to go into our modern case with the North Dakota pipeline issue, it is again this thing, because for so long it was just that idea that it wasn't getting play expressly because it wasn't a story that interested that large swath of the population. And of course, and as happens in these kinds of situations, if you need to get attention, maybe you need to make a statement, you need to stage a protest, you need to disrupt the normal course of events. And so they decide to take over the museum. Now, of course, someone turns to violence, and that never ends well because there is a David Banner in the room, and the poor professor gets shot, although not too badly. He gets lightly shot. It's only
shoulder or something. Yeah, you hardly see any blood. There's like a little couple drops on his shirt.
Yeah. Well, it's just that nobody seems worried about rushing him to the hospital at the end either. It's just,
it grazed his shoulder.
Yeah. It was interesting. It was an odd choice to make in that point. That but I guess they didn't want him to die, but they also didn't want to make that the dramatic the dramatic crux of the scene, because the dramatic crux of the scene is about Gabrielle White and her eventual re-embracing of her Native American heritage. Because when we get to the end, we do find that because I believe he calls her on the phone, we do find out that as it turns out the plant they had found was extinct. But again, this would be a great time to go back to that horse trainer who at least temporarily cured you, because in that episode he has a Hulk dream, but he doesn't Hulk out. So clearly this drug could control the Hulk. So maybe there is this way to find this other herbalist solution, but then it's a much shorter episode. Then it's a much shorter series. Again, I'll explain that in the McGee files, because in the McGee files, you're going to find out that McGee keeps on going back to there because he knows that the guy who keeps on turning into the Hulk was probably looking at that formula, and he's going to come back for it, and so. In my head, Jack McGee's a much better reporter, and he's always out because he's always chasing after all these other things in this fantastical Hulkiverse. Okay, what do you think, Phil? I mean, do you think that? What do you think about the political? Because there is a lot of politics in this, and
yeah,
I'm not entirely certain where they're falling on this. Or are they saying that, hey, well, I guess one could argue that. Well, you know what, Phil? Before I say everything, what do you think about the level of politics in this episode?
It was interesting. I mean, I think they're falling on the side of the Native Americans, because at the end, didn't the professor say they were opening like another museum? It was gonna be on the reservation, or?
Well, yeah, they're definitely redress the wrongs of that idea of just, well, we're scientists, we can come and we can take because it's for the betterment of all, but of course it's their culture, their people, their history, and it's great that it's for the benefit of all, but it's interesting that the benefit of all seems to be not that you could have everyone come here and look at it, but no, you want us to go look at our own culture into the city and to your museum. So but that and that's good. And of course Gabrielle returns to her given name of Gabrielle Whitecloud, and although I do it is an interesting thing, I think, when they do explain her thoughts on passing, about how it's not easy, and and not for nothing, it's got to be hard enough being a woman in the scientific field, let alone being a
Native American woman.
Yeah, so it's like I can't pass as a man because I'm Kim Cattrall, but maybe I can pass as white because, as luck would have it, I am still Kim Cattrall.
But yeah, that would have been difficult, especially in 1979.
Exactly. And so, I think they did address that. They gave her point of view very strongly, very nicely, almost to the point where you're almost afraid, are they just going to say, well, hey, it's okay because, hey, we all got to do what we got to do. But then I think they addressed it well. I think they handled it well. I think they presented it in a solid way. And then, they do show all the guys getting arrested at the end. So that's a downer. But one hopes that maybe there's some. I mean, obviously the guy who brought the gun in did the shooting, he's going to have to do some time. But then again, he's actually the most violent one. So maybe the guys that just wanted to do a honest political protest, maybe they can get with a lighter sentence. Especially with the testimony of Dr. Whitecloud and the professor who got shot, but said, well, only that guy shot me. But that's though. But all in all, like I said, it was you get a lot of good in this episode. This would have been an episode David White would have loved. We've got search for a cure and strong McGee presence. Everything you're looking for in a Hulk episode right here, and some really nice Hulk outs, and some Hulk outs where I think the Hulk really does serve a purpose. When it comes to lifting heavy beams in a cave-in, that's where you want a Hulk. When it comes to holding up the mountain, as we learned in Secret Wars, you need a Hulk. And of course, when you have people held at gunpoint, that's when a Hulk comes in handy. So, yeah, all in all, I thought a really strong episode.
And then don't forget pushing the truck out of the mud.
Oh, yeah. Well, it was like that because then it's just so nice that the Hulk is so helpful. He's like, I'm just hulking out. Oh, and again, comes to this weird idea that maybe the Hulk is not all rage. And I do think we get that a lot with this, that the Hulk is not all rage. That sometimes Hulk just won't be left alone.
The anger or stress is just the trigger that brings him out.
Exactly. And yeah, when he calms down, he can turn back. But when he's in his heightened Hulk state, he he's still David Banner, through that dirty ashtray, as Ed Norton described it as, and he's not going to hurt people if he doesn't have to. If they don't attack him, he can just, try to make, and if he comes across people who are stuck in the mud, he's going to lift up their car. He's going to help them out. Yay, Hulk. He's a hero. Okay, so that's our episode this week. Phil, if they'd like to talk to you, how can they reach you?
If, like me, you would like to read the Jack McGee files, email me, nightwingpdp@gmail.com. On Twitter, I am at nightwingpdp. We'll put the pressure on Charlie Esser here. We need the McGee files.
We do. Okay, and of course, if you'd like to tweet along with me as I live tweet The Incredible Hulk 7 o'clock on Saturdays, when I can, or live tweet Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which is coming back, because I saw it as on my DVR recorder coming soon, and of course, Legends of Tomorrow, which is coming back too. You can follow me on Twitter at Charlie Esser. That's CharlieEesser. Look for the 2 E's in the middle for quality. And if you'd like to write to me in that old-fashioned email way, and let me know how much you want to read the McGee files, and let me know what's a good open-source word processing program that I can put on my very thin, inexpensive HP laptop we just got. Yeah, it's one of those $200 Netrunners. Write to me at superconnectivityblog@gmail.com. That's superconnectivityblog, all one word, @gmail.com. Thanks for listening, folks, and listen again next week. Good night. Thanks for hulking out with us.
We hope you've enjoyed this show. This podcast is part of the 80s Reboot Overdrive channel on Southgate Media Group. You can follow us on Facebook on the 80s Reboot group page. We're also on Twitter and Tumblr at 80s Reboot. We invite you to check out all the wonderful podcasts and blogs available at southgatemediagroup.com. And thank you for reliving the 80s.